Yahya Jammeh, the president who boasted he could be in power for 1 billion years.
Gambians create dictators. We ourselves, as citizens, we make Jammeh to become a dictator.
I can say I'm better than anyone you would ever have in this country.
In the end, he managed 22 years of corruption, torture, and brutal political repression.
They came with live bullets and killed a lot of students.
But in 2016, the impossible happened.
My father strongly believed that Jammeh could be deposed.
Inspired by a campaign of radical protest, direct action, and revolutionary music, the people rose up, defying an attempt to rig the vote and bringing in a new elected president, Adama Barrow. At a time of global uncertainty, Gambians showed the world the power of democracy.
That was the first time an opposition leader won election. That was the first time it happened in this country.
Nobody had ever thought that one could defeat a dictator.
But as Gambians look to the future, there are concerns that the new president has been too slow to remove some of the worst offenders of the previous regime.
And they apply by the old mindset. The first thing you think of when you see people protesting, hey, no, okay, shut up, hey, put your hey, da, da, da.
This is the story of how Gambians pulled off an extraordinary political heist and of the challenge they now face in escaping the shadow of Jammeh's rule.
We are on our way to Kanilai. Kanilai is the home of the former president. So today we would say what a luxury the president lived both in, his normal official palace and the palace he built for himself in his hometown.
Mohammed Sandeng and Kifa Barahama are two activists who grew up in the dark, deadly shadow of Gambia's former president, Yahya Jammeh. Both have first-hand experience of his brutality. Today, they're visiting the palace that was a symbol of his excess. On these grounds, Jammeh spent thousands of dollars on a personal zoo.
He used our funds to do all of this, to get all these animals from wherever they came from, and he's been feeding them with public money, obviously, and then there have been hundreds of thousands of Gambians outside there that really are living below the poverty line.
Jammeh and his inner circle looted at least $975 million of public funds. When he went into exile in 2017, age 51, he left the country with a debt of over $1 billion.
It's a relief knowing, Kanilai, a part of Gambia, is no more, a captive land, I would say, or let's say, it's no more a captured piece of land that has been thrown into whatever somebody wants, one person wants,
Jammeh first came to power in a military coup in 1994. As a young lieutenant leading a temporary military government, he promised a fresh start for Gambia. His coup came after decades of rule by Gambia's first post-independence leader, Dawda Jawara, a period marred by unemployment and allegations of corruption.
We have no plans to stay long. All we are here for is to set a just system.
One of the young Gambians who witnessed Jammeh's rise to power was Yankuba Dabo.
They ushered into a new Gambia, which would create a lot of opportunity for everyone. And obviously, the mantra of the military junta at the time was transparency, probity, and tranquility. So This was something that resonated with everybody.
Fighting corruption, fighting nepotism, fighting Africa's disintegration.
During the 2 years of Jammeh, the first year, we are part of the guys who were really supporting him at the time because we wanted change.
But once Jammeh had power, he showed no sign of letting go. He used both the police and a personal security team known as the Junglers to ruthlessly cement his rule. Initially deployed primarily against political enemies, this use of violence spilled out into the open.
He said a lot of things. He promised the Gambian a lot of things. But at the end, early 2000, he started attacking the population.
In April 2000, the streets of Westfield, just outside the capital Banjul, were filled with student protesters. One of their aims was to seek justice for the reported rape of a schoolgirl by a police officer.
At the time, I think there was this perception that the security forces or members of the security forces could do anything to anybody and got away with it. So the student went out there to protest against what happened to their colleague, but also to protest against the whole status quo at the time.
I was in grade 5. I was just in school and I heard people shouting. Then that's the time some other students came to our class and said that we all need to go out. There is something that has happened. They have killed our colleague. They have killed our friends.
And that protest turned crazy, you know. I remember that. I was like there with my uncle Lamembo. He was taking me to school. And we were like right up the block at Church's Town, and it was all blocked up.
I've seen people falling down. I didn't know whether they were shot, but I've seen people falling down, people crying, students crying.
14 students were killed. Many more were seriously injured.
I was shot behind from the knee. The bullet entered back of the knee and went out of the kneecap. They came with live bullets. Those are the ones who came with the bullets and start firing at us and kill a lot of students. That was the turning point of my life. My aims and objectives were to be a doctor. And since then, no career development, no job, no opportunity for us, me and the rest of my colleagues.
He used that particular event, right, to show Gambians that you shut up, don't come out in the streets again. You feel what I'm saying? Keep to yourself, or you're probably going to end up like that.
That kind of public uprising never happened thereafter.
Over the course of his rule, Jammeh repeatedly denied allegations of human rights abuses.
Those who accuse me of human rights violations, well, I leave them to the Almighty Allah. Allah will reward them. Allah will judge between me and them.
Jammeh appeared to pay lip service to democracy, yet increasingly presented himself as ruler for life.
How long you stay in power does not determine your fate. It's what you do that determines your fate, as far as I'm concerned. But let me tell you one thing. My fate is in the hands of the Almighty Allah. I will deliver to the Gambian people, and if I have to rule this country for 1 billion years, I will.
While Jammeh's repressive police tactics kept protesters off the streets, a new political space opened up online, in social media and music. In the early 2010s, rappers like Ali Cham, more popularly known as Killer Ace, began to exploit this new space that was far harder for Jammeh to control.
Yeah, this is where I live. I'm from Talinding, Forokono, man. You see what it's like? You know, it's a ghetto. Yeah, but the ghetto is where, you know, there's a lot of beauty in the ghetto. If you listen to my music and you listen to my song, you can tell it's based on my surroundings, you know what I'm saying? Everyday stress, yes, it leads to frustration. I'm walking down dirty roads, which ain't got enough pavement. Waiting for a van, we ain't got no bus stations. My peoples are working extra hard until their guts are aching. and at the end of the day, don't get enough payment.
Killer's music began addressing some of the most obvious failings of the Jammeh regime.
You got this, oppressive system. You got poverty. You got these young children who, are going through things that they shouldn't go through as children. So I'm like, come on.
In 2015, Killer released a song that would put his life in danger. Titled Kuboka Sigetaji, the track carried a simple but radical message.
I mentioned corruption. I mentioned the lack of freedom of expression. I mentioned arbitrary arrest and detention. I mentioned the extravagant lifestyle that the president used to have, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of things that were not going right. Right after it was dropped, it was already viral. So a few hours later, before the morning, like, the song had already spread like wildfire, you know what I'm saying?
Before long, Killer Ace feared he was being tailed by Jammeh's notorious death squad, the Junglers.
In my father's house where he lived, you know what I'm saying, they came there all black, climbed the house looking for me. You feel what I'm saying? When you see black at night, that's the slaughter team, man. That's the jungler team, just in case you don't know. That's what we were living in. But when you see the black, nobody dares to speak. The whole neighborhood is quiet. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's silent. They pack you up, throw you in the boot, you're gone.
While Killer Ace fled to exile in Senegal, frustration with Jammeh back at home was gaining momentum. Under Gambia's constitution, 2016 was an election year. Many suspected Jammeh would try and rig the vote. But some activists were now calling for electoral reform. One of the most prominent was Solo Sandeng.
It was something always on the table. We wanted electoral reform because we feel that the laws were not good. But Solo Sandeng somebody who was really very strong against those kind of draconian laws.
Solo campaigned against what he saw as routine electoral abuses, such as handing voting cards to foreigners. In early 2016, Solo's son Muhammad worked as personal secretary to his father.
He had always been telling truth to power, in any way that was going to be beneficial to us. I came from a very loving family, and then as a kid of a politician, I was exposed to politics very early.
As Solo spoke out, he took ever greater risks.
Each time I try to confront him, in a very nice way about that, what he says is that I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for a greater cause.
On the 14th of April 2016, Solo organizes a public rally protesting for electoral reform.
He was not naive. He knew what he was doing. He knew that he was challenging, a dictator.
Plainclothes security forces quickly surround the protesters and Sandeng is arrested. Kifa Barahama was covering the protest as a journalist. He saw the moment Solo was taken by the police and driven away.
I just come right at the window. I asked him, Solo, are you arrested? He just looked up my eyes and said, yes, I'm arrested. He said it, that these people, they wanted to kill me. You can go and write. This is what Solo Sandeng said from his mouth.
Another prominent activist, Nogoyin Jammeh, was taken alongside Solo. She saw firsthand what happened next.
Ntanin Solo beta ta wat kilinela. Montro tembulo kono baro wato 12 kata talang kilin ka usifal. Yembondi wol to PIU kan samba. Yen samba set kata NIA. Dole ya bulol mutateng, dole ya singul mutabela ren tabulo kam bencho kam. Iba busale ya busa wol to fafat. Ya lipaten fu sumiyate bulo kon.
On the streets of Gambia's capital, it wasn't yet known for certain that Solo was dead. All the same, many already feared the worst. Solo's arrest and subsequent disappearance was a warning shot that might have silenced the campaign for democratic change. Instead, it had the opposite effect.
That was what was needed. We only needed a catalyst to start, confronting Jammeh in his face.
For long-time opposition leader Usaino Dabo, Solo's suspected murder had lit a fuse.
If Solo could die for Gambia, why shouldn't we go out? If we are to die, let us also die.
2 days after Solo's disappearance, Dabo called for another protest.
I called up our members of the Executive Solo that now, tomorrow, we are going out into the streets.
The aim of the protest was to get my dad and the rest of the people that he was arrested with released, and especially him, dead or alive. And just then, they started beating us. They started hitting us with rifle butts, with batons, and then it got wild.
I saw them started firing tear gases, while the other protesters and the other people were also stoning them.
We were also arrested. Still feel the pain here because I was winked off from the truck. I fell down and they kicked me.
Kifa sustained serious injuries during the protest.
Whenever I look at it, it's just like a nightmare to me. And seeing myself in this condition, this picture was taken after the incident, after the time I was beaten.
In the days after the protest, Kifa was detained by police and says he was tortured.
Was born with a plastic bag, and this is the arm. This was the rifle butt that the security were using.
They told me that you are going to drink our urine as your water. And they urine into a bottle. They open my mouth, take out the cloth from my mouth, and put the urine inside they forced me to drink it. And from there, they started smoking cigarette, offering the cigarette on my body. So I thought that oh my God, I'm going to die.
We had to leave because Gambia was not our Gambia anymore at that point in time.
Kifa was released and he and Solo's family escaped into exile in Senegal. It was only then that they received official news that Solo was indeed dead.
Sen elder bi call ma mu ne ma confirm nañ ne Solo dee na. 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 Solo d fala daanu ma hom boobu tamit xamatuma dara si aduna.
It emerged that Solo had been denied a proper Muslim funeral. Without the knowledge of Solo's family, he'd been buried in a secret, shallow grave.
They just dumped him in a dugout hole as if he was a dog. I mean, they were subjected to the most horrendous treatment, brutalized, and showed how wicked some human beings can be to a fellow human being.
Me and my dad, we had plans. So anytime I thought about all that we spoke about, you know, I thought, no, there's no way my dad isn't gone. He's still waiting for me somewhere, and I'll get to him at one point, you know.
Outraged by the brutality of Solo's death, Gambians continued to protest.
You could see how things unfolded, how fear broke down, that you could say, we don't want Yahya Jammeh anymore. We want Yahya Jammeh down.
For the first time since the student protests of 2000, Gambians were now regularly taken to the streets to demand change.
There was resistance to his dictatorial tendencies or being built up.
Jammeh's brutality was also having consequences closer to home. Now, his own bodyguards were secretly turning against him. Still fearing the long reach of Jammeh, they've asked to be kept anonymous as they speak for the first time on television about what made them turn against the former president.
I have to protect my identity because still now, I feel I'm not 100% safe in the country.
The bodyguard's fear is rooted in personal experience of Jammeh's unpredictable temper.
Sometimes, when he's upset, you know, he will just give out order for people to lock you up. So this is why now we start, you know, having in mind how to overthrow him.
The bodyguard's chance for revenge came when they were privy to an alleged secret meeting between Jammeh and the mayor of Kanifing, Yankuba Koli.
One day, we were a part of the office security, and Mayor Yankuba Koli came to present the registered voter cards. Then he was given access to see the ex-president. Then he was telling the ex-president that we have gathered some registered voter cards for a start. And he was asked about the amount, and he said 300,000 plus. He was telling him it's a good start.
Koli strongly denies these allegations. Jammeh's bodyguards met to decide on a course of action. It's claimed the president's plan was to give out 300,000 fraudulent voting cards to foreigners. This many foreign votes would be more than enough to sway the election in a country of under 900,000 registered voters.
So, how can we solve this problem? Because if this man have to win for this next election, things are going to be tougher.
Destroying the voting cards would disrupt an attempt to rig the election, but it could have fatal consequences.
I was in fear because I was even thinking that they might kill my family.
Very, very brave. It was risky.
If they were caught there, that was just summary execution. No doubt about that.
With less than 4 months to go before the election, the bodyguards drove to the ruling party's headquarters. 4 of the plotters approached the guard posted at the entrance.
We told him to shut up, and if he made any noise, we would kill him. We held him down, tore his clothes, and then tied him up.
Another 2 bodyguards broke into the building and set fire to the fake voting cards. All 300,000 of them.
That changed everything. And it happened shortly before the election, so It happened at a time when registrations for voters' cards had already concluded. You cannot restart it again.
Without fake foreign votes, the upcoming election stood a chance of being a fair contest. The challenge now was finding a candidate to stand against Jammeh. With Ousseynou Dabo now in prison, the largest opposition party, the United Democratic Party, or UDP, looked to a new untested leader, the party's former treasurer, Adama Barrow.
I never even think of becoming a candidate or contesting as a presidential candidate. I never thought if I will work for government. I've always been private.
In October, the different rival opposition parties met to decide if Barrow should become an independent presidential candidate who could unite the opposition.
Your commitment to this opposition unity is overwhelming. Your belief that Yahya Jammeh has to go. You are on the right side of history, Antifatmata Tambajang.
Adama Barrow was an unlikely candidate. Having once worked as a security guard in London and an estate agent in Gambia, he had little political experience. Yet Barrow's anonymity soon became his greatest asset.
Barrow was a clean slate. He was someone that was never known on the political scene. So I think it was easy for everyone to bet that they could have some sort of influence or control over him.
Muhammad Jagana is a childhood friend of Barrow, who became a key aide of the would-be president.
I think people use that anecdote that he was an accidental president. But they need to understand also that, as the governor of Kaduna said, Miss Universe is not the most beautiful woman in the world. Miss Universe is the woman who decided to put her face up there and won a contest.
And Adama Barrow, 308 votes.
From that day, I think everybody thought this boy can make a difference for this country. He can make a change.
Barrow agreed with opposition leaders that, if elected, he would only stay in power for 3 years. It was a crucial factor in uniting the coalition parties around their new leader.
Gambians are already tired of 22 years of Yahya Jammeh's misrule. And this year, by the grace of Allah, we shall end this misrule. Long live the coalition and long live Gambia.
United around a new leader, the opposition began their campaign across Gambia for the election scheduled for December 2016.
Yahya Jammeh killed many people in this country.
Having fled to exile in Senegal to escape Jammeh's death squads, Killer Ace joined the fight through social media.
Being in Dakar, I had access to internet. 3G, super fast. I was doing live video after live video.
About time, you go, you join peaceful protest right now.
Social media was actually dictating. It was controlling the narrative. They were able to reach out to everyone in the rural areas to educate people about what was happening, and that played an important role.
Exiled in Senegal alongside Killer Ace, Muhammad added his voice to the campaign for change.
I worked with Killer Ace in his album, called The Lyrical Revolution. I did a spoken word poetry.
Year amongst years, revolted we, revolted against an evolved foe that broke our evolving hope, dried our cows, melted our wax, bust our drums, sucked our juice, became our duke, oppressed our people, raped our democracy with fake identity of divinity.
But fed, we got up, our lights we uplit, we the people from all walks of life, lyricists in songs, journals by journalists, and poets in poems.
Call it a struggle, a fight for some. There is an ultimate name, revolution.
All that was done, and we all did in our small ways, which together made great impact.
Back on the ground in Gambia, it seemed as if the time of the accidental president had finally come.
The support was there. People were ready. There was no doubt in my mind, with that crowd, I'm gonna make a difference.
There was this divine feeling. You would feel that there's no way how God would leave Gambia in the hands of Jammeh this time around.
Finally, it was time for Gambians to go to the polls. Yet, despite all the progress made by the opposition, many still feared that Jammeh would win.
It got into people's mindset that it was going to be impossible to remove Jammeh. So some people even believed that it was a waste of time or waste of votes voting for the opposition.
By the grace of the Almighty Allah, I've had the biggest landslide in the history of my elections in this country. Thank you.
That does not happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's like, is it real that you are able to defeat Jammeh? Because psychologically, we feel that we cannot do it. That's what everybody thought.
And then, at a stroke, 22 years of Jammeh's rule seemed finally to be over.
I hereby declare Adama Barrow duly elected to serve as President of the Republic of the Gambia.
I was at one of my friend's house. I was very listening to the results.
I think everybody in the Gambia or in the world that was focusing on Gambia would remember where they were, what they were doing. I was actually at home preparing to go to mosque when I just heard the jubilation.
Basically, I was very, very happy.
We were happy, very much happy, because that day, that night, we didn't sleep, full of joy together.
That was the first time an opposition leader won elections. That was the first time it happened in this country after 52 years.
New year, new style, new president, new life. This is the Gambians having their freedom. This is the freedom for our youth.
That was immediately when the results was announced. People come out, started stoning all the pictures that he was having on the sky and the pictures that were pasted on the billboards. People started pulling them down.
And to everybody that voted for Barrow, and voted for peace, for all the people that fought to make sure Gambia is free, we love you, we are saying thank you.
Opposition leader Ousainou Darboe hadn't even been able to vote. On election day, he was still locked up in prison.
I couldn't believe it. And then the main yard where you have the other convicts, they were banging their door, the doors of their cells, and the other side of the maximum security, cell number 4, they were also banging. And I came to realize, well, this is true.
It was quite significant, not just for Africa, but for, I believe, the rest of the world. Because prior to that, nobody had ever thought that one could defeat a dictator in a democratic process.
For some, however, in the midst of celebration, it was also a moment for reflection.
Suddenly, I could see Solo stand in front of me. And actually, my tears rolled down. I thought of several people who had been part of this struggle, and what they struggled for has come to fruition.
I could not celebrate when Jammeh lost. I only celebrated with my family. Just the first we put in the air and we took a photo.
The next day, Barrow and his team waited by the phone for Jammeh to concede.
We were all waiting. It was like, everybody is looking forward to this call. Is it going to happen?
I'm calling you to wish you all the best. The Gambian people have spoken, and I have no reason to contest the will of the Almighty Allah. Hello? Are you hearing me?
It was unbelievable. it was just completely out of Jammeh's character. This wasn't Jammeh.
Gambians were astounded when Barrow left open the possibility of asking the outgoing president for advice.
And inshallah, if we need any advice, in your area we will always consult you.
Thank you. Though I'll be a farmer in Kanilai.
I am here with you.
This is politics. This is diplomacy. This is diplomacy, so you have to use diplomatic language. But definitely, I don't need that. I don't think I would have seek for advice from Jammeh. I don't think so.
Then, just 1 week later, Jammeh made a televised announcement.
I hereby announce to you Gambians my total rejection of the election results and thereby annulling the elections.
And he changed his mind after 1 week. We have rejected the elections.
And it put everybody on alert. People were wondering what is going to happen next.
Expecting the worst, thousands of Barrow's supporters began to flee the country.
People didn't know their fate. Those who were seen celebrating in the streets during the euphoria when he considered defeat thought now we are going to die.
Fearing for Barrow's safety, Mohamed Jagana helped arrange the evacuation of the president-elect to Senegal.
I think it was definitely a good move to evacuate President-elect Barrow to a safe haven, whilst ECOWAS and the rest of the international community figure out how to stabilize the political situation.
With Barrow now in effective exile, Gambia's fate rested with ECOWAS, the economic community of West African states.
There was this ECOWAS head of states who were trying to mediate, myself and Jammeh, and I had a very good meeting with them.
So 2016 was a completely different era in ECOWAS's history. The great majority of leaders in the ECOWAS region or ECOWAS countries were led by democratically elected presidents. Now, those people would be very much willing to uphold democratic principles anywhere. That wouldn't have happened in the previous years.
Under the leadership of Liberia's democratically elected president Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, ECOWAS was in no mood for compromise. At a summit on the 17th of December, the group resolved that Jammeh should leave power within 5 weeks or face grave consequences.
Even though they wanted to use the diplomatic route, the use of force was also not taken off the table at all. That if push comes to shove, that force could be used to really remove Jammeh.
When the deadline passed with no concession from Jammeh, ECOWAS's patience finally ran out. On the 19th of January 2017, ECOWAS sent military forces to Gambia's border.
We saw the army, the economic forces being dispatched, and Jammeh knew that game was over, and this is serious business.
2 days later, it was all over.
I have decided today, in good conscience, to relinquish the mantle of leadership of this great nation with infinite gratitude to all Gambians.
Within hours, Jammeh was ready for a final send-off. To the music of a ceremonial band, he boarded a plane to seek refuge in Equatorial Guinea. And with Jammeh gone, it was finally time for Gambia's new president to return.
When we came down the plane, it was emotional to see. You could see the welcome, the passion people had. We spent 7.5 hours from Banjul International Airport going down to Westfield. And I was like, wow, the wind of change has arrived.
I feel deep in my heart. Gambians are out there supporting me and supporting the cause of change, supporting the cause for democracy. So this was huge. It was very emotional.
In the coming days, exiles like Killer Ace also return to Gambia.
There can only be a new Gambia if we change the way we think, the way we act, the way we relate to each other. If we change our mind state, then there can be a new Gambia.
Long live the Republic. Long live the United People of the Gambia.
After almost a year in exile, Mohammed returned to Gambia in February 2017. Seeking closure for the death of his father, he chose to attend the police exhumation of his body.
We were invited as a family to come to the spot of the exhumation, and it happened right here at the corner, you know.
Solo's shallow grave was in the grounds of a building belonging to Jammeh's National Intelligence Agency.
He was brought in a pickup truck, behind a pickup truck, to be buried somewhere, you know, around a corner of this building. Coming to this environment really gives me memories of a great loss. It's really very, very somber, and it's cold. It's a very cold feeling.
Solo's suspected killers are now on trial, and that means that 2 years after his death, his body is still being held by the state, and Mohammed is unable to give his father a proper funeral.
I want to be all right. That's all I want. I just want to be okay, you know. I want to get my father's body and bury it. I want to get our father and bury his remains.
For Gambians like Mohammed, few things are more important than seeking closure on the crimes of the Jammeh regime. At the State House, all eyes are on the new president to deliver.
I've never worked for government. It's the first time, and I start from the top. I needed time also, you know. It's not this.
What has gone better under Barrow so far is that Barrow has not been as repressive as Jammeh was. He had upheld that promise to create an open political space where political parties and all kinds of opinions will be expressed.
One of Barrow's first acts as president was to set up the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, or TRRC. Over months of hearings, over 40 witnesses have testified to the full extent of state brutality under Jammeh.
It's they themselves who line up these people to kill them, the juntas.
And kept at the army headquarters for 13 months and subjected us to different ways of torture for many, many days.
One of the most high-profile witnesses was Sana Sabali, the former vice chair of Jammeh's military regime. Sabali has himself admitted to carrying out both torture and summary executions. In 1995, the tables were turned when he himself was arrested by Jammeh's forces.
They would apply one of the electrodes on my neck, on my tongue, and then the other on my penis. And they would be adding the voltage slowly, voltage high and voltage down. And this all were accompanied with beatings. And yeah.
As a country, we have to move on. But moving forward, we have to accept the truth.
The TRRC is one step toward healing the wounds of the past. But as the names of those accused of the worst crimes are revealed, it also raises questions about the continued role of former Jammeh loyalists in the Barrow administration.
They electrocuted you?
Genau.
On your penis and on
my
your
penis
tongue?
and my tongue.
Who did that?
Alhaji Martin.
Alhaji Martin, The man named as a torturer has served under Barrow as a general in the Gambian army and testified at the TRRC.
Do you still deny that a hammer and electrocution machines were used on these people?
Yeah, only the bag.
You now saying that they placed the plastic bag over Sabali's head as he was beaten and asked questions.
Beaten, correct.
Now you confirm that.
Correct.
Okay, how do you describe that? Do you describe that as beating or you describe that as torture?
Torture.
And this was done under your supervision?
Exactly. Nobody have thought that this thing will come to light. I never thought. He's a Gambian. We want to know the truth. And then we decide what to do. I think we wait for the recommendation of the TRRC. We don't want to preempt.
Barrow has now suspended Martin from the army. All the same, many still fear that the presence of other Jammeh loyalists in the security forces has led to a continued culture of police repression. "50 kilometers outside Gambia's capital, chaos unfolded when police clashed with locals protesting against the construction of a mine in the town of Farababanta. 3 protesters were killed.
Why? Because the same people within this old establishment are still here in existence in this new establishment, and they apply by the old mindset. The first thing you think of when you see people protesting, hey, no, okay, shut up, hey, put your hey, da-da-da-da. That's all you know.
Jammeh was here, now Barrow is here. That's the only thing that I have seen is change. Even the people who were working with Jammeh, I can say 50% of them or 75% of them, they are still in the system.
We have few people in the system, but these people are Gambians. That's why we have set up the TRRC to know the truth. You have to know the truth first. Then the truth will dictate what we do next.
For those disappointed with the new president, one comfort was Barrow's original promise to only remain in power for 3 years.
The 3 years was a verbal agreement, but in reality, it's not feasible. Because we have things to do. We feel that we can do that in 5 years, but 3 years is not possible.
According to the terms of the opposition memorandum signed when Barrow was elected leader of the opposition coalition, he committed not to stand for re-election. Now, however, his position seems less clear.
For me, winning election in 2021, that is the Gambian people. The only way to get the presidency is the Gambian people who vote for you. That is not my decision, it's the decision of the Gambian people.
Is a man whom hadn't been vetted properly by the people, because people were hoping he would be resigning in 3 years. Now it seems, since Barrow ascended to power, he is showing signs that he is determined to go beyond the 3-year term. And quite simply, the country has so many challenges. We face a lot of challenges. We do not think that Barrow is equipped to be able to take us through.
Is this the Gambia we want? Yes or no, huh?
For activists like Killer Ace, disappointment with Barrow means it's time to start campaigning for change all over again.
The Gambia we want. I said it's the Gambia we want. Is this the Gambia we want?
It's about the people. It's about these people. They have a say. The young people, the old people, you know, the disenfranchised, the grassroots people. We have to bring it to them, you know, bring it to their doorsteps and let them play their part.
We have a job to do, and we have to remain focused and do that. And we want to do that before 2021.
Only time will tell if Adama Barrow makes good on his promise to uphold democracy. Yet for Gambians like Mohammed, whose family were among those who fought hardest in the revolution that brought him to power, they're still prisoners of Gambia's past. This half-finished building was once intended as a home for Mohammed and his family.
I suppose that should be my bedroom.
Construction stopped, however, when Muhammad's father was murdered in the struggle to overthrow Jammeh.
And our daddy, he was going to give us all that. He just went away, but he was going to do all that for us, you know. It gives me a lot of mixed feelings and makes me want to cry, but the only reason why I don't cry is I know I'm supposed to stay strong, you know, and keep on what he started. So there's nothing like crying. It's not going to solve anything about it.
Today, these ruins stand as a reminder of the human cost of Gambia's democratic revolution and its uncertain rewards. After more than 2 decades of Jammeh's authoritarian rule, expectations for change in Gambia were always going to be sky high. In time, Adama Barrow may deliver. Either way, the revolution of 2016 taught all Gambians a crucial lesson.
The youth who broke the spell. It was the youth who was like, yo, it's enough.
The spirit of free speech that championed Barrow in opposition is now holding him to account in power.
Because of the newfound democracy, everybody is engaged. Everybody is speaking his or her mind.
Now you can easily convince people to come out in mass numbers and hold protests. Kilayes and others have done it before, and that taught everyone a lesson that can be done.
I will continue the fight. I'm not scared. We are not scared.
Through the revolution of 2016, a whole generation has found its voice. In the face of new challenges, it's a voice that now shows no sign of staying silent.